Season 8, Episode 4 of the Ubuntu Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be discussing Ubuntu Mate. We'll also have some combined command line and GUI love, and we'll go over your feedback. I'm Alan, and joining me this week is Mark. Hello, Mark.
Hello. And Martin.
Hello, Martin.
Hello again.
Thanks for coming back and joining us for another madhouse. Mark, what have you been up to this week?
Well, I've been playing with a new feature I discovered on CyanogenMod, the Android fork, which came preloaded on my phone.
You have a OnePlus one.
A OnePlus One, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this feature called Profiles, which lets you set up a settings profile. So you can say, for example, I've got one set for work where I have it set to vibrate, and I turn the mobile data on and the Wi-Fi on. Mobile data off and the Wi-Fi on. I've got one for my car where I turn the GPS on and the Wi-Fi off and unlock the screen. And various other things for different situations that I'm in, which is really handy because it means that you can just really easily switch it into a particular mode depending on what you're doing. And then another thing I discovered is that you can set triggers for when it switches into the various profiles, and one of them is when it scans an NFC tag. So I bought some little NFC tags and I stuck them in the various places where I want to use my phone in a certain way.
What's the most embarrassing place you stuck an NFC tag?
Oh dear, that's a very personal question.
I just thought you might have one, I don't know, on the back of the toilet door that opens a game or something. Everyone was thinking it, Mark.
I've got one on my bedside table, I've got one on my car dashboard, and I've got one on my desk at work.
Okay. And this is something that's in CyanogenMod and not in stock Android?
As far as I can tell, because the icon for it is the little CyanogenMod Android guy waving, so it makes me think it's a particular CyanogenMod thing rather than a stock Android thing.
Just to build on that, you might want to look up Llama location-aware profiles to add to that. You can do all sorts of fantastic stuff with that.
Ooh, okay. I sure have.
Does that do like geo fencing or whatever they call it?
All sorts. It can react to all sorts of location and environmental triggers and really build on that. And I use that extensively. It's terrific.
Because you can use this. You can have it trigger when you connect to a particular Wi-Fi network or connect to a particular Bluetooth device. But I tend to use it for turning the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on and off. So that doesn't really help me.
Yeah. So I use Llama for that, and I use it for things like when it detects my home Wi-Fi, it disables the lock screen.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah. Nice.
So what have you been up to, Martin? Anything interesting over the last few weeks?
Well, yes. I've been refining Ubuntu Mate for the Raspberry Pi 2, so that's a thing now. That's kicking on. And I've also been talking to an OEM who wants to start shipping Ubuntu Mate pre-installed on their range of laptop and desktop computers. So that's exciting stuff.
We'll have to talk to you more about all of this in a segment a little bit later on.
Yes. So what have you been up to, Alan?
Not playing Grand Theft Auto 5. Because
is that you have been playing Grand Theft Auto 5 and you're lying?
No, I have not. Yes, for the benefit of the tape, I have not been playing Grand Theft Auto 5. And the reason I haven't is because it was supposed to be released yesterday, and it wasn't. It's been pushed back to April 14th, and I'm grumpy because I pre-ordered it.
I'm sure it's been out for ages.
It has, on various horrible boxes that sit under your TV that use controllers to operate, but I like using a PC. Apparently I'm a member of the PC Master Race.
A flight yoke with throttle.
Generally, you don't need a flight yoke to control a man walking around beating people up, as is my penchant in Grand Theft Auto. But no, I'll probably take a day off in April when it does come out.
You just can't contain yourself.
Well, it's that, and also I bought it on Steam, so people will know when I'm playing it. So all my friends will say, Alan, why are you playing Grand Theft Auto and not working? Yes, it's evil proprietary software, and it probably doesn't run on Linux. I feel really bad about that, but I love the game. So
cool.
Should we get on with the show?
Let's.
So we wanted to get Martin on the show for a number of reasons, and one of them was to catch up with you because things have accelerated very quickly in the world of Mate. Last time we had you on was middle of last year sometime when you were talking to us about the Mate desktop and how it was the future of everything. And now and now things have moved on. Give us the tweet size, what happened between then and now, and we'll expand upon that.
Okay, well, what happened is I spoke to you guys on this podcast about Mate and why it was a sensible alternative, and I also politely pointed out it was broken in the Ubuntu 14.04 repositories, and Popey didn't seem satisfied with that response, and a week later I got an email that read something like, "Ha! I've made an ISO image of Ubuntu with the Mate desktop, and it's all your fault, and you sucked me in, and now it's sort of overtaken itself, and we've created a monster." So, it's now an official member of the Ubuntu family. We're going to debut in 15.04. We've got quite a strong following of users, and it's overwhelming and surprising and a lot of fun.
So you say we?
Yeah.
I mean, we all know you are involved, and I understand you've been very much spearheading the whole development effort of Ubuntu Mate, but I mean, do you have a lot of other people who are contributing on a regular basis, or like how does their contribution compare to yours?
Yes, so there are a lot of people contributing. So at the moment, the Debian maintainers for Mate are doing an awful lot of work in fixing up the packaging and doing bug triage, and this is mostly Mike Gabriel. And I'm sorry, you know who you are from Greece, and I can't pronounce your name. I'm terribly sorry. There's two guys doing an awful lot of work on the Debian side, and what I'm doing is I'm just taking everything from Debian and just syncing it directly into Ubuntu. So a lot of the packaging and a lot of the refinement is happening there. And then we've also got a guy, Vlad Orlav, who's heavily invested in the Linux Mint community, and he's actually done all of the code review recently because we've had some glib compatibility issues in the Mate desktop, and he's done all of the code review and all of the patching for Mate desktop to fix those issues, and he's provided patches for Mate 1.8 and what will become Mate 1.10 for both Debian and Ubuntu. So the last 6 weeks has really been sort of coordinating all of that. I haven't actually done any of that work. I've just been keeping tabs on how they're progressing. And then the lead developer of the Mate desktop, Stefano Karapetsis, has then put out the necessary point releases of the required packages to work around some of the bureaucracy and politics around Debian at release time to make sure that those new fixes get into Ubuntu. So they're just some of the people that have been involved recently. And then there's a cast of thousands who do artwork and testing and just translations and all manner of things.
So you started off aiming for a community maintained release, but with a very strong target set on having the images built on canonical infrastructure and having it a flavor just like all the others, like Kubuntu, Lubuntu and everything. So if you were to describe the family of releases that Ubuntu Mate has had in like less than a year, what have we got? What's available for people to use, and what's the plan going forward?
Okay, so the first release that we did was an unofficial version of Ubuntu 14.10, and we followed the Ubuntu release schedule for Utopic. So when there was an alpha and a beta and a final release, we released on the same days, even though we weren't part of the official program. All through that process, every day, I got dozens of emails and things on social networks asking when's there going to be a 14.04, when's there going to be a 14.04. So,
which is tricky given 14.04 is an LTS that was already out, that was released 6 months previously. Right?
and all the Mate packages that are in the official archive are broken. That was the other complication. So I side ported all of the Debian packages to Trusty and Precise into PPAs, and then put together a 14.04 version of Ubuntu Mate, which was actually, it was based on 14.04, but I added some new features and improved some things. So it was like an evolution of the 14.10 version. So that kind of twisted everybody's heads.
Sounds like a hell of a job.
Yeah, it was a bit. So we had a 14.04.1 release, and that ate about a month out of the 15.04 cycle. So then I then did some work on Arch Linux for like a solid 6 weeks. So all through December, my spare time was all working on Arch. And then in January, I started in earnest on Ubuntu Mate. And we've got some people who are really wanting to see Ubuntu Mate become an official flavour in the official repositories, because they have a use case for it, for doing remote terminal server deployments. And they want all of Ubuntu Mate in the official archive, and all of the remote terminal server packages that they want to use in the archive, so that they can have an external organisation do a full security audit. So We've done the first part, which is getting Ubuntu Mate all into the archive for 15.04, and then for the 15.10 cycle, among, nifty desktop stuff, we're also going to be working on remote terminal service integrations and deployment strategies and all of that sort of thing.
So people could get a 14.04 based image and, get updates from Ubuntu. And that's probably a more useful, it sounds, image to get than 14.10, which has a short life cycle.
Yes.
So if people want LTS, they've got 14.04 for that. And it sounds like you've got big plans for 15.04 and 15.10. Do you plan to revisit 14.04 at all, or are you going to rubber stamp that and say, right, that's done. We don't need to update that anymore?
No, I did. I've just released. Was it yesterday? No, last week. Last week I released Ubuntu Mate 14.04.2. Which pulls in the hardware enablement kernel from 14.04.2, and also updates all of the Mate packages from the work that's been done with Debian. And I did the same for, or not the kernel, but all of the Mate packages were updated for the 14.10 version as well. And the 14.04.2 version, in addition to sort of refreshing the packages, add some new features. So I've done some work to introduce first-class Compiz support for the Mate desktop. So I've ported the Compiz plugins and integration layers to Mate desktop. And I've done that development work in 15.04 and worked with the upstream Compiz team to deliver that. And then I've back-ported that to 14.04. And in 14.04.2, you get that out-of-the-box Compiz.
So you get wobbly windows.
You can turn it on. Wobbly windows is actually turned off by default, because as much as I love them, I was kind of looking at them and I was thinking it doesn't make the desktop look very professional. It makes it look like a toy. So they're there. It's there, one click to turn wobbly windows on if you want it, but it's not enabled by default. Yeah.
Welcome to 2006 all over again.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, if I spent quite a bit of time developing some sensible defaults for Compiz, and it actually takes that traditional desktop and adds some real polish and shine. So with some nice transitions and a little bit of hinting on the windows and some subtle transparencies when you're moving windows around, it really sort of, sets the desktop off really nicely. So I'm really pleased with how that's worked.
So having a 14.04.2 release, which has the hardware enablement stuff, means if someone goes out and buys a relatively new machine, be it desktop or laptop, with a modern chipset, they're going to have a happy time with a super fast desktop running a modern kernel, modern X, and an up-to-date Mate desktop on an LTS release. That sounds like a winner in every department.
Yeah, I think people like that combination. It's certainly proving remarkably popular.
In fact, that is exactly what Samantha is running right now on her laptop. So yeah, it's running really nicely. So yeah, well done on that. And there's also, there's this looking forward to the future, but there's also a nod back to some older machines. I've seen some people post photos of some what people might consider archaic machines running Mate. Tell me about that.
So within the niche of the Ubuntu Mate community, we have the niche of the PowerPC users within the Ubuntu Mate community.
Oh, wow.
So Adam Smith, I think his name is, he did a port of Ubuntu Mate to PowerPC. And that got me interested enough to get an iBook G4 off eBay and help with that porting effort. So now we're official. We've got access to all of these other architectures that Ubuntu supports. So now Ubuntu Mate on PowerPC is an officially supported architecture, and that will work on G3s and G4s. I've got a G4 here. But some of the guys that have got G5s, which are really decent machines with, 4 and 8 core processors and 4, 8, 16 gigs of RAM and decent graphics cards, they've now got a modern operating system, and they're really pleased to have an alternative to Ubuntu that they were using as like their base platform, because that's available on PowerPC, and then, customizing and tweaking that. So Ubuntu Mate's proved quite popular there. And then we've had another community member, Rohith Madhaven, and he's done a port to the Raspberry Pi. So Ubuntu Mate 15.04 is also available for the Raspberry Pi 2.
Sounds like a very good fit.
It does. It works really well, actually. I had a play with it for the first time last week. Just got a couple of hours to set it up one evening, and I was pleasantly surprised. There's some tweaking and room for improvement, but I tell you what, he's done a really bang-up job in those first stages. And what we're going to do now is create a build system whereby we create a generic Ubuntu Mate root file system for ARM hardfloat, and just make that available. And then anyone can download that, and providing they know how to inject a kernel and initial RAM disk and the appropriate tweaks around that, you should be able to relatively easily bring Ubuntu Mate to any ARM v7 platform. So we'll see what happens there. My next target is the Odroid C1. I think that looks like a real interesting device.
Cool. That's amazing. And I also saw someone mention a Commodore machine. Is that a PowerPC device? What is this?
Well, I don't know all the details. It's an Amiga 1 X1000, which is a PowerPC G5 based device, and this is one of these really stonking, multi-core devices with, gigabytes of RAM, and it's got ATI Radeon 3D cards. And two of the guys that are running these, they're doing a lot of work to port Mesa and custom kernel compiles to exploit all of the features, and they're doing all manner of things with it. It's quite amazing. So they're getting some longevity out of what would have been at the time a significant investment in that hardware.
So right now we're close to the end of we're a few weeks away from the end of the 1504 cycle. Is it now down to final testing before the release at the end of April? What have you got left to do for 1504?
I think it's pretty much done. I think it's really now starting to plan 1510 and sitting in the garden, sipping gin and tonics and just cruising into final. Yeah.
Cool. And looking, ahead into the distant future, is 1604 going to be an LTS release?
Yeah, now we're an official flavour. Yeah. We will be following, all of the usual release schedules and release policies. And
do you have specific goals in mind for what you'd like to be in the LTS? Are you going to have Mate running on Mir?
Who knows? That's a long way out. I think the initial goals are, I've talked about the remote terminal stuff in 1510, and I've got a number of projects lined up to further enhance the desktop experience and give easy access to some essential facilities, I think. Ubuntu Mate is
also nice and vague.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll give you some examples. So we ship, for example, Deja Dupe, the backup application, which has integration with the Nautilus File Manager. And I ported that to Mate, or rather Kaja, the Mate File Manager, and sent that as a merge proposal to the author. And he explained, for reasons that I won't go into, why taking those patches on didn't fit the way the release worked. So the Ubuntu Mate project gave some donations to Marcos Costales, who's the developer of the GUFW firewall configuration utility and folder color. And he's subsequently done a port of the Kaja plugin for Deja Dupe as a standalone utility, and that's something that we're going to introduce into 15.10. So within the Kaja file manager, you can just right-click a folder or a file and say back it up, and it just does it. Or you can right-click a folder that's already backed up and say restore this to a previous version, or show me the files that are in my backup that are missing from this local copy, and restore them. So we're working on integration with those sorts of tools, and I want to look at things like launchers to add some sort of hotkey launching and fast searching and stuff like that. So we've got quite a lot planned, and we might not get it all done. It's a big old list, but there's lots of room for improvement.
Sounds like it. So the usual question: where can people get hold of Ubuntu Mate? Where can they find out more? Where can they get involved if they want to?
Okay, well, you can find out more from ubuntumate.org, which is ubuntu-mate.org. It's nice and easy. And from there, you can find out more about the project. You can access the downloads, and you can find out more about the Ubuntu Mate community. And we're on all the social networks, but I encourage everyone to go to ubuntu-mate.community. And we've got a thriving community there where the guys that are working on things like the Raspberry Pi 2 port and the PowerPC work and other developments, that's where all of those discussions and those teams are collaborating. So if you want to find out more, go there. And there's a vibrant community of people helping out and advising people who are new to things and they want showing around. And there's a good sort of helpful community there. They're very friendly.
Awesome.
Cool.
Good to hear. Well, thanks very much for talking to us about Mate. It's interesting to see how fast it's accelerated over the last few months, and no doubt we'll keep checking up with you over the coming months as well. Thanks very much, Martin.
You're welcome.
And now it's time for Command Line Love. And we've also got some GUI love.
Yes, we do. What have we got this
tell
week?
us about it, Alan. Tell us about the GUI love first.
So the GUI love, I've been using Telegram on my mobile devices to keep in touch with friends and family. And I recently discovered that there is a desktop version of Telegram.
So Telegram is
like
WhatsApp, an IM client.
Yeah, it's like message your friends. Generally, it's like a mobile thing. It's got group chat, and on the mobile
like
clients,
MSN Messenger?
Well, more like WhatsApp, more like Facebook Messenger, to be honest.
Right.
But it's got, stickers and, all that kind of fun stuff. And I think the iOS and Android versions have audio messaging as well. So you can record a little audio message and hit send, and the recipient hears it, or the group hears it. But there's now a desktop version as well. It's an official client. So if you go to desktop.telegram.org, there's a single binary you download, run it, and it shows up all your contacts if you've already signed up. If you haven't, then you need to sign up with a cell phone number. And then
or mobile phone number, as we call them in the UK.
Yeah. Thanks. But you can also set a username as well, so you don't have to use your mobile number.
Okay.
Once you've signed up once, you can use that. But yeah, I leave it open permanently on my desktop, and it's great. I get little notifications. It's got a little indicator thing at the top, and it has little badges when people message me and stuff. It's really nice, and because all the messages sync on all my devices, including my Ubuntu phones, I know that everything's in sync, and I can see the messages from anywhere. And if I read them on one, the notification goes away on all the others. It's really nicely done.
The trouble I have with Telegram is I've got Telegram and I've got WhatsApp, and on WhatsApp I've got about half of the people in my address book, and on Telegram I've got you.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was using WhatsApp, and I'd encouraged all of my family to use WhatsApp a couple of years ago, except all of my family are technically incompetent, so I was the one putting my PayPal details into everybody's WhatsApp instances and shelling out 69p every other month to keep everyone's WhatsApp addiction going. And I got a bit bored of this, so I moved at Christmas. I collected everyone's phones together on the table and moved them all to Telegram. And now it's plain sailing because I don't have to deal with, WhatsApp subscriptions, and everyone's got the same user experience that they had before, except now those family members that have got tablets and phones can see their messages in both places, just as Popey described. So, yeah, cool. I'm a real big fan of Telegram. I think it's terrific.
And why is this a command line love as well?
Well, interestingly, when we were preparing this, the question came up, well, there's a GUI for this and there's a mobile client and, we're Linux users, so is there a command line version? And the answer is yes, there is a Telegram CLI.
Hooray.
And we'll put a link in the show notes. But yeah, basically you can download this command line client. It's open source. I think it's on GitHub, but you can grab the source and build it yourself, or there's
So this is packages. Just written using their API, is it?
Yes. So the Telegram API is well documented, so you can write your own client, and someone's written a command line one, a third-party command line client. So yeah, if you're a console geek, you can get your Telegram on via TTY0 if you really want to.
Great. And that's all the command line love for this week.
And now it's time for your feedback. It's been quite surprising to get quite a bit of feedback since we've only been back for 2 episodes, but thank you very much. We welcome all feedback. Send it to show@ubuntupodcast.org, or you can tweet us at Ubuntu Podcast on Twitter. And I'm sure there's other ways that are listed on the website as well. So one of the people who got in touch was Albert, and he emailed us to say,
welcome back. I really appreciate if you could mention the 7th Egham Raspberry Jam, which is happening on the 26th of April. It's free to attend. Just register at eghamjam7.eventbrite.com. Now with the Raspberry Pi 2B, there is the ability to run snappy Ubuntu Core as well as a full copy of Ubuntu with Mate. Besides this, there will be usual robotics, Scratch, Python, and Minecraft activities. A great place to connect with others interested in getting the most from the Raspberry Pi for personal entertainment and education.
Excellent. Raspberry Jam. Yes. I see what they've done there.
Yeah.
Yes. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes.
I think I might have to go to that with my daughter. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does.
Great. Where's Egham?
Not far from here.
Yeah, just up the A30.
Okay.
I think.
Cool.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, up the A30. Yeah.
Also, someone Jelly wrote in to say,
yay! The return of Radio 4 of Linux podcasts. First observation, better audio. Well done, guys. I'm guessing the 3 of you are sitting in separate rooms locations, recording locally and using Skype and Google Hangouts. If you're not, I don't know how you are making it sound so good. So how are you making it sound so good?
Well, that's exactly what we're doing.
Except
without
we are.
Skype and Google Hangouts, we're using Mumble.
Yes. And recording locally. Yes.
I
think it's something we need to cover in a lot more detail, which we'll probably do in a blog post on the site, because lots of people have asked us how we record the show now.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll document that. Maybe we'll talk about it on an upcoming episode as well. We also had a comment from Steve Smithhurst, who said,
so is it a 10th anniversary or birthday?
Neither.
However you're billing it, it's the 7th anniversary.
Yes.
However you're billing it, I'm very pleased to congratulate you on your milestone achievement. I've been listening to the UKPC since OggCamp God knows years ago. When it still sounded to my inexperienced ear that there was a rivalry between yourselves and the Lynch Churchill faction. I was an avid Outlaws listener until the end, and I'm glad the rebadged Team UPC is still going strong. It's getting on for 10 years for the Twit network too. Nostalgia and trepidation are invoked in equal measure. The best things about your show are, in no particular order, Mark. No, he didn't really say that. Theme tune, Command Line Love, quizzes, and Laura's accent. He says, I'm Mank, so up north.
Whatever that means.
I was happy to hear what you thought of Speed Test CLI. I recently used this as a tool to build a case against my old ISP, Tiscali, and go for my new ISP, Zen. I ran it hourly on a bash script from a cron job, and it gave a graphical output by GNU-plot over a couple of months. It's a cool tool in my book. I'm just about to read the Ubuntu phone review in Linux Voice. I'm very eager to load it onto my old HTT Desire, although I have no idea when it might be ported so widely as to exclude arbitrarily old kit.
That might be tricky.
I'm not sure we're going to see it on HTC Desire anytime soon.
Yes, maybe.
It's quite an old phone.
It is. It's a bit, it's a bit of a clunker. But you never know. People have ported all kinds of things to strange hardware, as we discussed earlier in our Ubuntu Mate section. We also had a comment from Alex Anderson, who asked,
why not simply redirect the old feeds to the new one and avoid losing 80% of your audience? HTTP redirects are not hard to configure and are universally supported. If you want to be really fancy about it, make a bridge redirect that delivers all the normal episodes but injects a please remember to update your feed addresses at the front of each episode.
Yeah. We considered this. We considered doing a redirect, but we decided to just, burn all our bridges and nuke from orbit and start again with a new feed. I'm not convinced we'll lose 80% of the audience. We'll have to see. Mark, you did put an audio thing in the old feed, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. So there is if you subscribe to our old feed, the episode that you'll get is an episode saying subscribe to our new feed. Right. So hopefully people can follow instructions well enough. And there's, in the show notes for that episode, there are links to our new feed. So only if you're really bitter about us, killing the old feed, would you not be able to subscribe to the new one. Right. And, I think all of the people who count will stick with us.
Yeah. And those who
if
don't...
you're listening to this, you count.
Yes. And if you don't, you won't have heard this. So, yeah.
Cool.
Phelan Whiteley emailed to say,
hooray, you're back. I'm happy to still provide a mirror service. I see episode 0 went up to it, but not 1. Let me know what you want me to do. Looking forward to a listen.
Yes, this is also something we considered, but decided to keep the episodes. So, for those who didn't know, we had a mirror network of very generous listeners who spun up copies of all the episodes on their own servers. And whenever we release an episode, we would run a little script and it would update all of those mirrors before we publish the episode to alleviate the load on our server and spread the load around the world. And we decided for simplicity, we would not do that. And also because we've got quite a lot of unused bandwidth on our VPS that's very kindly provided by Bitfolk. That may change though, because we're now obviously using a lot more of the bandwidth on that box because all of the episodes are now being downloaded from our box and not from the mirrors. So yeah. I think we need to make a decision at some point, and we may well start reusing the mirrors and push all the episodes back out. We can switch that on. But thank you very much for the kind offer, Philip.
Yes. Cool, and that's all of the feedback, I think.
There was one last thing. We also had loads of people asking us to add our feed to various podcasting apps and directories. So far, we're on iTunes, Gpodder, Stitcher, and TuneIn, which is really cool because I love TuneIn. Not that I would necessarily listen to my own show on TuneIn, but I like TuneIn. We're submitting them as soon as we find out what they are, and if we're missing from your favourite, then just let us know and we'll submit it.
And finally, if you are a web designer or would like to design us a new WordPress theme, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, because the site looks terrible. It's just a default WordPress theme with an orange blob on one side. So, yeah, if you fancy updating our site, that would be really, really nice. And that's all of your feedback. Send us more to show@ubuntupodcast.org or Twitter @ubuntupodcast. I think that's it for Season 8, Episode 4, isn't it?
I think so.
Good.
Great.
Thank you, Martin, for joining us for this. It's been great to talk to you, and we'll have you on again sometime, I think.
Yes.
And relax.
Oh, and breathe, yes.
Yes.
That was,
so let's hope that all recorded.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no one will hear this.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
That would be strange, wouldn't it?
Yes.